Welcome to Do It Yourself with Wayne. This is part 3 of repairing my deck, and we've got everything off the deck. Water garden, if you saw the first part, was a really big job. The second part, we've got most of the decking off except for a little bit at my back door so I could still come and go. And so now we're ready to start rebuilding part of the deck. I'm going to start with the steps that are over this way, and that's what this board is for. I'm going to show you how I laid it out to be cut, and then we're going to cut it. Now the first thing I need to do is make the new stringers, and I took the best of the old ones that came out, and it's not in too good a shape, but it was still functional. And I'm going to zoom in on this and let you see a little bit closer what I'm talking about. Let me adjust my camera here a little bit. There we go. What I did, I laid the old stringer down on top of my new 10-foot 2x10, and I just took a pencil and lightly went around here on all the different steps. And then I went back, and I clean this dirt off, and I took my framing square, let's see this in here, and I figured out exactly what those measurements were supposed to be. So from 7 drop, 11 on for the step. I went down with the framing square on 7 here and 11 over here, and I took a Sharpie and outlined the outside of that, which is where I want to cut, and I did that on every step. So now I'm going to cut this out and see how it fits. Now the way I mark these, I want to cut the Sharpie mark, and I'll cut to here, and then I'll cut from here to here, but I'll stop when the circular saw gets right to the point, and I use my hand saw or jigsaw or something to finish the cut. So let's do that now. Here we go. Just need to make sure I'm not going to cut my trailer here. All right, that gets 2 of them done, except for the final last cut. So as I said, I'm going to take my hand saw. My hand saw is pretty dull. I guess that ain't going to work. All right, plan B. Okay, my hand saw was too dull. I guess I need a new one. I got my reciprocating saw. It should do the job here. All right. Have to pull it up a little bit so I can see how far I'm cutting. I don't want to cut too far. All right, there we go. There's the first piece out. Got a little bit there I could trim off yet. There we go. All right, now the next one. Be careful they don't cut my trailer here. again, making sure I don't cut my trailer. There we go. All right, there's 2 of them. Now I'm just going to continue and cut the rest of them out, and then we'll cut it in length and see how it fits. Now, one thing that happens as you get older, you forget stuff, and people say make a list. Well, when I got the Lowe's yesterday, I had a list, and on that list was 3 2x10s 10 feet long to make my stringers for over there. When I got home, I had 2. So at some point I got to go back to Lowe's and get another one. And I don't want to do it today because it's such a pretty day to be working out here. So I'm going to hold off on the steps right now, and I'm going to start, I'm going to put blocking between these joists. I think as long as they are, some of them are warped this way, I think some blocking between those joists would help a lot. So I'm going to work on doing that. Most of them are 14.5 inches between them. Some a little more, some a little less for various reasons, like where posts were at and things. Oh, excuse me. So I'm just going to cut a few anyway at a 14.5 and start fitting them in and nailing them in place. And so that's the project for right now. All right, let's cut some 2x10s at 14.5 inches. Now I started with the 2 leftover pieces from my stair stringers. You know, I should have 3, of course. I just mentioned I didn't count right at Lowe's. So I measured 14.5 inches. I put a mark. I used my tri-square. Continue my mark. Now I use my tri-square again on the other side, like so. I set up the mark on my circular saw to where I just cut that mark, because I just want to cut kind of the center of the mark. All right, sorry about the sniffing, just everything's getting me here. All right, here we go. All right, there's my first one, 14.5 inches. Now I just need to cut a few more of those, and then I'll start putting them in. I'm not going to cut all of them because some of them are a little different. They're not exactly 14.5 for various reasons, but I'm going to cut maybe a half a dozen or so at 14.5, and then I'll be back. At this point, I got my blocking in. I wasn't really able to video this part because I have to walk like a duck under here to get under here and work, and it's just so difficult. But I did get them nailed in place, and this will actually add a lot of strength to this part of my deck, so I'm real happy about that. All right, so let's move on back to getting some stairs built now. When you have a piece of wood that you've already cut that you're going to be using for a pattern to cut more pieces like it, now obviously I'm only cutting, 3 of these, one pattern so to speak, and then 2 copies. But always mark your pattern somehow or another. I write pattern on mine. And when I install this, and I'll just turn it somewhere that won't be seen. But if you keep using the same one that you just made your copies, over time, your last one won't match your first one. So when you make your first one that you're going to be using as a pattern, make sure you always use that one when you mark for consecutive cuts of that particular item, whatever it is you're doing. So I got it laid here. It's flat on the back side. Maybe just a little bit further. Let's see, a little bit more there. And I got just a little bit of a knot down on this end, so I'm going to pull this down that way just a little bit and cut off a little more than I need to just to get rid of that knot. All right, and then I'm just going to take my Sharpie and I'm going to draw around this thing. And when I cut it, just like before, I want to cut the mark. I don't want to cut any more than the mark. I just want to cut the mark. And in theory, that'll make them just alike. Okay. All right, now we're gonna cut these just like before. Just like I said, cut the line, but not over it. Now I've got 3 just alike. Next step is to get them installed over on the side of my deck. So let's go. Now right here is where my steps go. So the first thing I need to do is clean some of these leaves out of here, particularly over in this area where the bottom of the steps, I need to get a good level spot here for the end of the stringers to sit. And it's going to get me a line across here to make sure I get the tops, which the top of what I cut will be about here. First step will be about here somewhere, but I'll get me a line here to go by to make sure I get them all at the same height. So that's next. The next thing I did was I marked where the old runners for my stairs, where the top of them was at, and I marked down from here to here 7 inches because my treads drop 6 inches or 7 inches for every step. I used my level and I drew me a line across here, so I can make sure I get all of them at the same, so I get the stairs level. Next thing is I got these hangers for my runners for the stairs, and I did some measuring. The top of this is a 1/2 inch higher than the top of my runner for my stairs. So when I mount them, the top of the metal's got to be a 1/2 inch higher than my black mark that I put across there for where the stair runners go. So now I'm going to put me a mark in all 3 places, a 1/2 inch higher, which will be 6.5 in my case. If you're doing your own deck, it may be different. That's what mine is. Now when I mount these, I'll do the one in the middle, and then I'll use my level to make sure I get the 2 outside ones perfectly level in relationship to the middle one. So that's my next step. At this point, I got all my brackets in. I got my stair stringers screwed into them, and I checked that they're level this way. And with my 4-foot level, they're level. All 3 of them are level, even at the ends. So I'm ready to start putting some boards down. All right, let's pull some 2x6s out and start making stair treads. Now at this point, I've already cut and installed a few of my steps. And so next I'm going to be showing you how I cut them and install them. And also, this post right here, I had to trim out to go around it. I got another post at the bottom that I'll have to trim out to go around. I'll be showing you how I trim for that one. Procedure is basically the same. So now I'm going to move over to my sawhorses, and I'm going to cut 4 more stair treads, and we'll get them installed. Now I'm over here at my sawhorses in my trailer, and I got a 16-foot 2x6. My stair treads are 48 inches wide, 4 feet. So I measure out 4 feet, and I mark that 4 feet. Now I don't go another 4 feet and mark it again, because the kerf of the saw blade will take up some space. If you don't understand kerf, basically, come up here. If you look at the saw blade, these teeth are a certain width, and that width of that blade is called the kerf, and that will take distance off your cut if you're not careful. So what I'll do is I'll cut one, then I'll measure for the next one, and I'll cut it. All right, so let's put the battery back on the circular saw, and let's cut this one. Put my block of wood there. All right, probably ought to put something under there just to support this end. Because I don't want the wood to buckle on me. Yeah, that's there. My block fell out. It's always something. All right, I'll take my square now. I put it on the edge where the edge of my square catches there. I'll adjust my saw so that it cuts just that way of my mark, because that kerf, I want it to be beyond my mark. All right, so let's do that. All right, that gets one. Now, I'm gonna slide this down. Do it again. 4 feet. Right there. Now I'll cut that one the same way. Like I said, making the saw blade at the mark and going that way so your kerf doesn't detract from the length of your board. I got a little kickback there because the board wanted to bind on me a little bit. Now this time I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do the first part the same way. I'm going to mark my 4-foot mark, and then I'm going to go to the other end. I'm going to come back and I'm going to mark 4 feet. And put an X on the part I want to cut out, because these boards typically are just a wee bit more than 16 feet long. So I got 2 marks. The first one I want to cut on that end. The one I cut from here, or marked from here, I want to cut on that side of the mark. That should get all 4 of my boards the same length. All right, let's do that. All right, now for this one, remember I want to cut the other side of it. It's going to be a little more difficult for me. I'm going to have to come over here and find my mark. Should be right there. Need to raise my saw up just a little bit because the guard is hitting the table below, causing me some trouble. All right, so that's the part that I cut out that was actually more than 4-foot sections. I did 16-foot 2x6, even allowing for the kerf, which takes up about 1/8 of an inch. All right, now we got our 4 boards. We'll set them all right here. Okay, line them all up even. All right, this end, everything is even. And this end, there might be a 1/16 of an inch difference in between the 4 boards that I just cut, and that's good enough. All right, now let's go back over to my stairs and let's get these things installed. And I'll also show you how to trim out for that one post we've got to go around. Okay, now I'm over here at my steps. I'm taking 2 of my treads, and some people tell you to put the way the board the grain curves either up, so I'm gonna tell you to put it down. I don't know which is better really, because I've heard professional type contractors say either way. So what I do is I look for the best side of the board. I put that side up. So that's what I do. So I'm gonna start out, I'm gonna lay 2 of my boards here, just in position. I've already decided which way I wanted to turn them. And side to side this way, my boards are just a hair wider than the stair treads, the stringers are apart. So I got about a 1/2 inch of overlap on either side. So what I do, I just use my fingers under there and I just make it kind of even. Because this is my house. If it was a professional job, you might want to do something a little different. But that works out really very well for me. And looking at the ones I've already done, they look really straight. All right, now what I'll do is I'll take my leg and I'll put against this metal and push it in, just keep everything snug back toward the riser on the stringers. And then I'll put some screws in it. These are 6-inch or 3-inch deck screws. And I just put them in there like that. Run them in until they're just the top of the head of the screw is just below the surface. All right, now I do the same thing at both ends, and that stair tread, or that pair of treads right there will be finished. And next I'll get back to showing you how we trim out to go around this post. Okay, I got you up close here on this one so you can see this a little bit better. This is the stair tread that I've decided for this particular step. I use my fingers and I'll adjust side to side the way I want it. Then I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to mark either side of this post. Now I'm going to mark it right there where I don't want the mark cut off. I could have marked it so that I would cut the mark, but in my case I cut it so that I don't cut the mark off. Now the next thing you got to do is figure out how far in you got to go. Now I'm going to take my marker again. If you can see where I laid my board, where this riser part of the stringer is at, I'm going to mark that right there. And that's how much I need to cut off. So now I'm going to go back to my bench or my sawhorses over there, and we'll cut that little bit out. So let's do that now. Okay, like I said, I got these 2 marks. I don't want to cut the mark, but I want to cut between them. So I'm going to set my skill saw here, and allowing for the curve, I'm going to cut across there. And like I said, I got my saw cut really shallow, so we ain't going to be cutting too much here. All right, here we go. Well, I need to put the battery back in if I want to do anything. All right, here we go. All right, let's see what happens here. That might be a little bit shallow, so I'm going to deepen this thing up just a little bit. All right, let's see how that looks. I think that's about right. Now, one thing you can do with a circular saw that a lot of people don't know is you can go sideways with them. Now, did you see how I went sideways with that saw? You can only do that if you're cutting really shallow, but you can do that. Need to get a little bit more right there at the end. All right, let's take it and see if it fits now. Now one thing I found I had to do, I need to take this step off because it does overlap just a little bit off this edge. So I had to do that in order to get this down in there with a good fit. As you can see, nice fit there now. Now I'm not going to screw this one down until I get the other one cut and ready to go in. So let's do that now. So again, turn the side up that I want, figure my side to side, and then I'll mark it for where I want to cut it. Hope my microphone's doing okay here. All right, here we go. Let's mark this one where we want it. Right there, and right there. And in this case, I'm going to put my board here and mark here. Hope you can see that. So
unknown caller.
I marked here, I'll come across and put an X there because that's the part I want to get rid of. Okay, what I did, and you saw me, I marked my board here. I marked it over here, right there. I come in, I cut here and back out. I cut some of this with my circular saw and I cut this with my jigsaw because it was easier. Then I come over here and I got a perfect fit. Now screw that down, put this board back in place, and I'll be done with this set of steps. Just like that. All right, let's nail them or screw them down. Okay, this set of steps is finished, except for putting the railings up. That'll be much later. You may also have noticed I'm wearing my coat because it's cold today. Today's first day of December. And when I started this project, it was hot weather. So as I said in the beginning of the first video, this is going to be a long project because I work by myself. And it just takes a lot of time to do stuff like this because I've had a lot of other stuff going on too. But anyway, this first set of steps is finished. The blocking between my joist that you saw a little earlier, that's finished up. And that's going to be it for this video, this part of my dock repair video. In part, I guess it'll be part 4, I'll start putting decking down. And then after that, I'll do the other stairs, the other set of stairs. And at some point I'll get the railings done. Probably won't get the railing video done until springtime because I just don't like working out here when it's so cold. But if we have some nice weather, I may get that done earlier as well. But anyway, this concludes part 3 of rebuilding my deck. And I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave us a comment because that helps me. Leave me a thumbs up, that helps a lot too. And if you haven't subscribed, we'd really appreciate that as well. So at this point, I'd like to say thank you for visiting. Do it yourself with Wayne, and we hope you have a great day.